My name is Amy Clark, a 28-year-old office worker. Currently, I work at my father's construction company. I'm getting married soon. The groom-to-be is George Brown, a classmate from college who confessed his feelings to me. We started dating and now we live together. George works at a company in New York City, while I work at my father's local company. He commutes by train, but I use a car to commute. Now, with our wedding just 3 months away, I'm spending my days busy with preparations. George usually gets home around 7 p.m., so I take care of our meals. On his days off, George helps by cleaning our apartment and the bathroom. I love cars, especially driving them. Because of my father's company, I even have a crane license. Despite standing at only 5'1" and having a baby face, I often surprise people when I operate a crane at a construction site in my work clothes. But I find it amusing to see their reactions. One day, I was about to drive out for shopping. Accompanying me was my best friend, Megan Flynn. We've been best friends since elementary school and even went to the same college. She's a confidant with whom I can share anything. We plan to visit a recently opened outlet mall in the next state, which was a bit far, but we thought it would be a nice drive. I headed to the convenience store where we decided to meet up and met Megan there. Sorry to keep you waiting. Did you wait long? No, I just bought a coffee. Want some, Amy? Megan's coffee looked tasty, so I took her up on the offer. Thanks. Could you grab one for me too? I'll set the navigation system. Okay. Happily obliging, Megan went back into the convenience store. I began to set up the car's GPS and accidentally pressed the history button. Darn it, this touch panel is so sensitive, I muttered, trying to switch the screen back. But then I noticed a surprising entry in the history. The name was Hotel Lovely Chateau. What's this? Of course, I'd never searched for such a thing before. This is my car, but George occasionally uses it too. George must have used it. Well, no biggie, I thought, not paying much attention to it at the time, and continued setting my destination. Today, Megan and I were heading towards an outlet mall that just opened in the neighboring state, which is a bit of a drive away. We quickly got on the highway. The weather was great, making for a pleasant drive. Near an exit ramp, Megan suddenly pointed out, Look, Lovely Chateau Hotel. What a cheesy name for a hotel these days. Lovely Chateau? The hotel from the search history earlier? While driving, I couldn't take a good look, but there was indeed a big sign saying Lovely Chateau Hotel. That's indeed cheesy. We laughed together, but I couldn't help but feel a bit concerned because of its name in the search history. After finishing our shopping with Megan and dropping her home, I returned home alone. Once I arrived home, I checked the car navigation system again. Lovely Chateau Hotel. As I searched the name, it indeed showed the location near that exit ramp. It was definitely that hotel. It was undeniably one of those types of hotels. I couldn't help but wonder why George had searched for that hotel. I decided to keep a close eye on George's activities. I decided to install a dash cam in my car. I discussed it with George and he agreed, saying, Why not? A lot of people have them these days. It's good for safety, too. But in return, you have to pay for it, Amy. It's your car after all, he said. Although the car is in my name, George also uses it, so he ended up contributing a bit to the cost. The next day, after work, I drove straight to the dealership and had a dash cam installed. The dash cam comes with cameras facing the front and back, and one that records the interior of the car. The recording time is 5 hours, after which it overwrites previous footage. I also decided to add a GPS logger while I was at it. This device records the vehicle's movements via GPS. Then, after George had used the car, I checked the dashcam footage and GPS logger data. I mainly use the car for commuting, so George typically uses it on his days off. Of course, he always asks me for permission in advance. One weekend, George approached me asking, Can I use the car this Saturday? Sure, but where are you going? I asked. He replied, I'm planning to go to the shopping mall you went to last week. A friend wants to check it out. Who's his friend? Just a colleague from work. Lives pretty close by. Is this friend a woman? No way, man. He's a buff guy, even bulkier than me. All right then. Bring me back a souvenir. Gotcha, Amy. I bet you'd like something edible. Yeah, I'd love something sweet. All right, got it. Then came the weekend. As planned, George left on Saturday and returned in the evening. I had been waiting for him to come back, and I used the excuse of having left something in the car to go and retrieve the memory card and the GPS logger. After George went to bed, I checked the data from the GPS logger and the memory card. The GPS logger showed he did go to the shopping mall. However, it also revealed that he had taken a detour on the way back, exiting at an interchange. Upon enlarging the location, it was the lovely Chateau Hotel. This seemed completely suspicious. Our wedding is next month, and now this? My fingers were trembling as I operated the device. This was already a huge shock, but I composed myself and checked the memory card. I inserted it into the computer and played back the recorded content. Suddenly, a strange woman appeared on the screen, sitting in the passenger seat. She was quite flashy with long hair and seemed pretty. She appeared to be older than me, but her occasional smile was somewhat childish. Unable to think straight, I just stared at the screen, completely shocked. The conversation was also recorded. Really, you're such a bad boy. You're getting married next month, and you're still doing things like this? She laughed. It's all good. The reason I'm marrying her is because her dad's the boss. He's a construction contractor, but he's loaded. George's voice resonated from the playback. Oh, but once you're married, doesn't that mean we're over? No way, you're the real deal for me. I plan on divorcing her after a year or so. Of course, I'll make it look like she's the bad one and I'll grab a hefty alimony and her parents' wealth. After that, I'll be with you. Wait a whole year? No, we'll continue this relationship in the meantime. I can't bear to be away from you even for a day. That makes me happy. I love you, George. I love you too, Grace. I stopped the playback. I couldn't watch it any further. George had been unfaithful, cheating, and he was marrying me just to take over my father's company? The proposal he made, the birthday we spent at the Seaview Hotel, everything was a farce. Why? Tears blurred my view of the computer screen. The next day, I told him I had to prepare for the wedding, so I would be going back to my parents' home for a while. George replied without much thought, okay. Perhaps he was even pleased that I was going to be gone. To my parents, I said, I feel a bit nervous and I want to stay with you guys for a bit. Please, let me cool off. They seemed to think I was having pre-wedding jitters. They welcomed me back happily. After a couple of days passed, I received a message from my best friend, Megan. I felt I could tell Megan the truth. I told Megan everything. Megan said, okay, I'll come over tonight. Let's drink until dawn. Despite her cute face, Megan had some boyish qualities, but I loved that about her. I told my parents that it was a last-minute bachelorette party. Soon enough, Megan showed up with bags full of drinks and snacks. Mom, I'm borrowing Amy for the night. It might get a bit loud, so please bear with us. Megan began cracking jokes as soon as she arrived. Oh dear, I see you're all chatterboxes, but don't drink too much, okay? I made some stew, so take it and eat it. Her mother thoughtfully prepared some snacks as well. Wow, thank you. The wonderful smell earlier was the stew, wasn't it? I'll gratefully accept this. Oh, by the way, may I invite another friend over? Sure. Go ahead and make it a party that Amy will remember. Thank you so much. And with that, she called over another friend, Jane. She was a high school classmate. Interestingly, she's a wedding planner at the venue we've booked and will be reuniting as she's overseeing our wedding. She went to the same high school as Megan, and they've met several times, so they're good friends now. The party started with the three of us. I showed the two of them the dash cam footage. Then Megan said, oh, I know this person. She's Grace, a junior from our college club. Amy wouldn't know because she wasn't in the club, but both George and I were in the club with her. I was astounded by this revelation. Wait, George's junior? I thought she was older than me. She always seemed mature for her age, but who would have thought it's Grace? She's invited to the wedding. Most of the club members will be there, Megan said while poking a radish from the stew. But this situation is frustrating, isn't it? I want to get back at her somehow, Jane says, crushing an empty beer can. She's always had a strong sense of justice and even caught a groper during high school, handing him over to the police. She was enraged as if it were her own matter. Accepting Jane's words of revenge, Megan started talking. Let's ruin the wedding then. I have a plan, Megan said, preparing a piece of paper and starting to write something down. What do you think, Jane? Your cooperation is essential. Please, help Amy. Of course, I'm the planner for this wedding, so I can make anything happen. Jane, being the planner, joining our side certainly boosts the success rate of our plan. Great, you're reliable. Hey, both of you, you've had too much to drink. And thus the plan was formed. I covered the two of them who fell asleep from drinking too much with blankets and whispered, Thank you, Megan, Jane. Despite having too much to drink myself, I felt a bit relieved. The next day, I returned to George's place. Several days after I got home, I put my first plan into action. While watching that recorded video, it was Megan who found it. One day after work, I decided to dine out. I met George at the station, drove him to the diner in my car, and we had a meal. And when we got home, I let George out first, and I returned to the room after parking my car. Then I boldly went to the living room and was deeply moved, saying, George, to prepare something like this for me without even telling me. Huh? George made a strange sound in response to my sudden words. Isn't this a gift for me? I found it in the car. Saying this, I showed George the paper bag containing a luxury brand bag. The brand name was boldly printed on the paper bag. I was going to clear the rear window of the car because it was dirty. When I tried to pull out the cleaning tools from the floor under the rear, this was in there. Oh, George, you hid it there to surprise me, didn't you? Sorry I found it. I pretended to be innocent and acted even more delighted. No, that is... George fumbled his words. Do you have someone else to send such a thing to? Don't be silly. I have no one but Amy. Right, you bought it for me, didn't you? How much did this expensive thing cost? Around $2,000? Thanks, honey. Yeah, it's a limited edition, so I think it was $5,000. Well, I thought this would suit Amy, so I bought it. I really intended to surprise you, but, well, it didn't go as planned. Yes, it seems a bit youthful, but I can still pull it off, right? Of course. Any bag would look good on you, Amy. Hey, that doesn't sound like a compliment. Sorry. Okay, I'll keep it safe. Thanks a lot. When I heard his last sigh, I could hardly hold back my laughter. In the video from that party, I saw George being urged by Grace to buy a luxury bag, and then confirmed that he had bought a high-end bag and hid it in the floor of the back of the car. I found it, and I got it instead. During dinner later, George was sighing. Serves him right. And a few days later, I got a call from my father. It seems like my father's bad habits have surfaced once again. Believe it or not, he's gone and bought a new car. He's always had a thing for cars, and he's driven quite a few over the years. Apparently, on his way home from work, he pulled over at a used car dealership and spotted a gem of a car he used to admire. On a whim, he bought it right then and there. Dad, didn't Mom get mad at you? Yeah, sure she did, but that's no biggie. Listen to this. It's a discontinued Type R. It's a car I've always wanted. I thought if I let this one slip, I might never get my hands on it, so I bought it on the spot. I can hardly wait to get it delivered. Really? You never think about the consequences? What you are going to do with your current car? Oh, I'll give it to you. It's still in great shape. It can hold its own against the flimsy cars these days. That hatchback, right? I suppose I have grown a bit tired of the car I've been driving. Just sell that one. How can you enjoy driving such a weak automatic car? But that's when it hit me. Okay, got it. I'll do that. Thanks, Dad. Yeah, the new car arrives next week. You can pick it up then. I'll have it cleaned for you. Okay, but this is the last of your indulgences, right, Dad? Don't say that. A man's dreams never end. All right, thanks, Dad. I hung up the phone and couldn't help but grin. And so, my car changed within a few days. Amy, did you change your car? This one looks cooler than the last one. Yeah, my dad bought a new car and gave me his old one. It's cooler than the previous one, isn't it? Yeah, it's cool. Lend it to me this Saturday. Sure, why not? I felt like a fish had taken the bait. And then came Saturday. George, who had left with the car keys, came back immediately. Hey, that car. What's wrong? It won't start? No, I can't drive it. You can't drive it? Well, what's the matter? You drove it just fine yesterday, didn't you? That's because it's a stick shift. So what's the problem with that? It's just that I only have an automatic license. Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. This is not funny. I can't drive now. That's a problem. I need to be able to drive. Why is that a problem? Do you want me to drive for you? No, that's not... I don't want to spoil your day off. Really? I don't mind, though. No, I'll figure it out. All right, then. Safe travels. I knew very well he couldn't. Serves him right. Figure it out. The car I got from my father was a stick shift. There was no problem for me since I have a manual license. However, George only had an automatic license. He legally can't drive that car, and he probably wouldn't know how to drive it anyway. I had already figured out that he's been taking the car on weekly dates. Despite knowing that, I still switched cars. It's my car in my name, and I can do whatever I want with it. Here, too, I say, serves him right. Then, with just 1 week to go until our wedding, I received a message and was summoned to a designated location. Hello, my name is Amy, I greeted. Oh, Amy, thank you for coming. The other party responded. Not a problem, so how did it go? Well, please sit down. We'll discuss everything shortly. With that, I was ushered into a meeting room and sat down. Let's first discuss your request. Yes, this was a private investigation agency. I had requested a background check on George. The subject, George Brown, was definitely in the wrong. We have secured photos and videos. Would you like to see them? Yes, please. With that, the man pulled out a laptop, inserted a USB drive, and started playing a video. In it, 2 people were playfully walking arm in arm. They entered a hotel. The date and time of the video were from a Saturday afternoon 2 weeks ago. There were also photos of them kissing, embracing, and more. Thank you, this is enough. I then received the documents and left the office. Honestly, I knew about the affair, but seeing it so blatantly presented was hard. I contacted my friends Megan and Jane and arranged to meet at a pub. I secured a private room, showed them the documents I received earlier, and we started our analysis. Oh man, this is clear-cut evidence. This one's quite something too, they chimed. I have lost all sympathy. I'll bring him down completely. With that, I took a big gulp of my beer. Hey, Amy, could you lend me these? Huh? What for, Jane? I was already planning to make a slideshow of the bride and groom, so it would be easy to include these. Okay, all that's left is to get ready for the big day. With that, Megan raised her beer mug and gave me a toast. To us, let's give it our all. I was so touched that everyone was going all out for me that I felt like crying, but I held it back. And so the big day finally arrived. The day of the wedding. It was a hectic morning, busy to say the least. Upon arriving at the wedding venue, I was immediately ushered into makeup and wardrobe amongst other preparations. Regardless of my state of mind, everything moved along as planned. When I saw myself in the mirror, donning the white wedding gown, I was brought to tears. Despite this being the very image I had once dreamed of, I never thought I'd be wearing it with this feeling. My mother, noticing my tears, gently said, "Oh dear, the bride shouldn't be crying already," as she wiped my tears away. "I'm sorry, Mother, but these weren't tears of joy." The ceremony ended and the reception began. Just before making my entrance, I caught sight of Jane, who gave me a comforting smile. George was cheerful and smiling right from the start, while I could only manage an awkward smile. The reception proceeded without a hitch, as planned. Then came the moment for the bride's farewell letter to her family. The hall darkened, and a spotlight fell only on me and my parents at the head table. I was handed a microphone, but instead of reading my letter, I turned to face the crowd and began to speak softly. Everyone here today, thank you very much for joining us. Normally, at this point, I should be saying goodbye to my parents and expressing my gratitude for marrying the man I love, but a stunned silence swept through the crowd as I broke from tradition. Jane, off to the side of the stage, gave me an encouraging thumbs up. "The real bride is not me," I declared, causing an immediate stir among the guests. "The real bride is Grace Davis, a junior from George's college years. George has admitted that it's not me, but her who he truly loves. I have evidence." After speaking, a spotlight shone on one person in the crowd, and there was Grace, bathed in light. A lively music started playing, and a slideshow began. Images of them holding hands, kissing, and even entering a hotel were displayed, one after another. Then the music stopped, and a video of their conversation played at a loud volume. The hall was in an uproar. "What's going on here? George, you owe us an explanation." Amidst the flying shouts, I handed the microphone to a pale-faced George and bowed to his parents before stepping off the stage. Megan and Jane, who had rushed over, practically dragged me away from the venue. Behind me, the situation had become an unmanageable uproar. Still in my dress, I was led to an unused green room by Jane. Megan brought me my belongings and clothes, and I quickly changed before leaving the wedding venue. Megan drove me home, and I was finally able to catch my breath. "We did it." "Yeah, we sure did." Despite causing such a commotion, I felt oddly exhilarated. After spilling the beans at that wedding, I packed my bags and returned home. I received quite a scolding from my parents when they got home, but since George was the cause of the issue, it wasn't too severe. Father took care of the aftermath. In the end, the wedding was almost over but was called off, so there were issues like returning the gifts. People understood the situation, so everything went smoothly without any significant issues. The one who had a hard time was George. His infidelity got exposed, and the wedding became a mess. As a result, his parents had to bear the entire cost. On top of that, his boss was present, so the whole company came to know about it. The fact that George had been contacting Grace during work hours using the office email was also discovered, and George was demoted. He didn't lose his job, but with all the commotion he caused, he couldn't possibly work comfortably. Unable to handle the office atmosphere, he soon quit. As for Grace, the other party, she didn't end up with George after causing all that commotion. It seems they broke up eventually. As the engagement had been broken off after we had exchanged betrothal gifts, I asked George for compensation and other costs. George had used most of his savings on wedding day preparations, so his parents had to step in and pay. George, lacking any particular skills, had trouble finding a new full-time job. It seems he's now working part-time to pay back his debts. I also demanded compensation from Grace, his affair partner. As she had a bad reputation and was disowned by her parents, she had to pay the compensation herself, but she didn't have any savings, so she borrowed money from some shady loan sharks. Now she's working in the nightlife industry to make those payments. It's not enough compared to the emotional pain I suffered, but, well, it serves them right. Thanks to Father's compassion, I was put on leave, and with my newfound free time, I decided to take a trip to Alaska. For some reason, people tend to head north in times like these. Jane had also resigned from the wedding venue, taking responsibility for her part in the commotion. Feeling a bit guilty, I decided to invite her to join me on the trip to Alaska. With the damages I received from George, I covered the expenses. We used a ferry for our round trip, as we went by car. On the return ferry, we hit it off with two guys who were bikers. We exchanged contact information and decided to meet up again in New York. The two guys who worked at the same company said they go on a road trip to Alaska on their motorcycles every year. When I got back to New York and told Megan about this, she got upset that I didn't invite her. So it was decided that we would add one more person and organize a 3-on-3 mixer, including Jane. Even though a lot has happened, I've regained my spirit. Life throws curveballs, but I thought, well, such things happen. And with that, I decided to walk firmly towards the future.